Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the Planning Board meeting of January 22nd, 2026. Thanks for your patience while we were dealing with Zoom and technical things. We have a couple of items on the agenda tonight, including continuation of a site plan review at Woodbine Avenue and some discussion on zoning changes. First, before either of those, we will welcome public comment on any items not on this evening's agenda. So if there is anybody here who would like to give public comment, please let us know. We will take comment here in chambers first and then online. Is there anybody here in council chambers who would like to give comment on something other than tonight's agenda items? Okay, is there anybody on Zoom who would like to give public comment? If so, please use the raise hand function or turn your camera on and wave your hand about, and we will recognize you. Okay, not seeing anybody online either, so we will move to our first agenda item, which is a continuation from December 11th on a request for a site plan at 52 Woodbine Avenue. We did get some information from staff, including, we got some additional information from the applicant, but there's also still some missing information, including some things that DPW will need to review. So we will need to continue again. But I think that there are a couple of things that we may be able to talk about tonight. So Carolyn, can you just sort of get everybody up to speed and then we can hear from the applicant as needed?
Jana, can I just note for the record that I reviewed the recording of that December 11th hearing.
Excellent.
So I've seen everything that took place, so I can add to the discussion tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
I hope it made for very exciting viewing.
I did watch it on 1.5 speed.
How dare you?
Okay, so this was continued to address several items. One was more clarity on tree protection during construction. There was also an outstanding issue about connectivity with the path for this property to the Mass Central Rail Trail in the rear, and the connection of water and sewer lines to each of the units to ensure that they met separation requirements. Those were the sort of the three major items, and then there were some other items that were requested as well, but what's in the file, what was uploaded just, I think, Wednesday, was the tree assessment by the arborist, and as well as a memo, was either yesterday or today, regarding the connection to the Mass Central Rail Trail, which is on property owned by the Department of Conservation and Recreation. They have indicated that they will not allow a connection from this property onto their property, because it would only be for private use and it's not a public access. So they are not inclined to allow any connections anywhere that don't provide, aren't available to the public. So that has been uploaded. That came from DCR. That was uploaded yesterday, I think.
I thought at the last meeting we heard that there was some requirement, and so is this a change in policy on their part?
No, the city has a requirement that applicants that abut a parcel that is or abut a shared use path have to make a connection. The planning board has the ability, thanks for asking that, has the ability to waive that if there are circumstances. You can't force someone to go on someone else's property that they don't want you to be on. So there is the ability for the board to evaluate the circumstances and say, okay, we're not going to require you to do this one thing, because you can. But that's an action the board has to take as part of its review and acknowledge that that's why the applicant isn't connecting, because the property owner won't allow it. And so that was the connection. There was information about that uploaded, and then again, the arborist report is in the file, and but we still don't know where the water and sewer lines are coming and going.
Did we need more information about stormwater in general?
George. Thank you.
Did we need more information about the stormwater plans in general, or because of the size of the project that a plan doesn't need to be submitted to the DPW?
So it's the latter. Separate stormwater analysis is not required because of the size of the project, and also a separate stormwater permit is not required because of the size of the project. That doesn't mean that you don't look at where water flows, but and no property owner is allowed to direct, surface flows onto abutting parcels. So it has to be contained by code on the parcel, but you don't, the thresholds for reviewing a full system plan aren't required at this scale.
Do we actually need to have, I mean, let's just say we don't know what's going to happen with this, the connection to the bike path and all that kind of stuff. That's their decision. But assuming everything else went fine, is the fact that we don't have the sewer plans, can that just be finalized by the inspector? I mean, why do we need,
In some cases, that might be okay, but given the site is so tight, the location of the lines might dictate what happens on the surface, right?
Okay.
Because you have to have
Right.
that figured out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I understand relative to the rail trail. So it makes sense that the DCR has said, because this would be a private access, that they're not allowing it, that they would only allow public access. What you're saying is that even though the zoning requires access, we can waive that. And in this case, we could, and I think I'm hearing you say sort of have to waive that because we can't force the applicant to provide public access to their property in order to access the rail trail.
Correct.
Okay.
I didn't say that piece.
Okay.
But it is also.
Okay.
You can't require someone to put a connection on somebody else's property who doesn't approve it, right? So you can't say, it doesn't matter what DCR wants, you have to connect.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. But what you just said is also true. There is no mechanism to force public access on a private property.
Got it.
That they can offer it, but the board can't require it.
I think I have a follow-up question to that. I had the same question that Jana had. And what is in our regs, how is it, do you know how it's stated? Like if somebody builds near the rail trail, they have to provide access to the residents
Of that parcel.
of that particular parcel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and the other thing to clarify is the applicant is required to provide some traffic mitigation. So, for example, if the applicant were to provide public access, that could be a form of traffic mitigation, because then you're allowing the public to reduce potential trips by using that, but you can't, that would have to be offered. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Because it's a public easement then at that point.
And not to steal the applicant's thunder, but it looks like some new plans were submitted at 4:30 today. Showing.
I have no idea.
utilities.
Yeah. Okay. You should go.
Sorry, can you approach the mic? Thank you.
Those would be the stormwater management and,
Is that green?
those would be the stormwater management plans and also the sewer and water line are on that plan as well. You can see how the separation is happening on that. So I got confirmation from Nathan earlier today that you guys received those that are on there.
But DPW obviously has not had time to look at them.
I didn't know they came in around
Mm.
at 5 and even if they had, that's not enough time to review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do still need to
Yeah.
wait to ensure that that's,
Yeah.
they've done their review and
Right,
that it's not
right.
going to have further impacts.
Right.
Okay.
But that's good because it would give 2 weeks then
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
DPW to do that.
Okay. Okay, so there anything else we should be addressing this evening? I'm looking at the board, I'm looking at the applicant, or should we go ahead and continue and address the rest of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely up to you how you want it. If you want to just take it all at once and a continuation, since you have to continue it anyway, that's fine. Or if you want to narrow it down to whatever items, that's fine too.
Sam, can you turn your mic on? Thank you.
If we know about what's going to happen with the with the bike or the bike access, then everything else isn't it just assuming DPW says it's fine, isn't it just sort of a rubber stamp at that point?
I mean, yeah, you'd want to do a final review to make sure all the site plan criteria have been met, but
I guess I'd be inclined to, it's nice to have all the pieces together in one place
Mhm.
and then approve it rather than piecemeal it.
Mhm. George, you have something? Yeah.
So yeah, I would, we're talking about the access to the trail and access to the site. I wonder at some point, if we could just hear before we make a motion to postpone, another go round at the sidewalk, the pedestrian access from North Street to, along, Woodbine Avenue. I know there was some concern from the abutters and for the life of me, I can't remember how that was resolved. Because I think there was some trees in the way and we were going to narrow the sidewalk. So I just wonder if, before we close, if we could review that with the applicant.
if I recall correctly, I think the issue was a question about which side of the street the parking was on because the hydrant and so forth. And so that, if that's what you're referring to, and that would be more of a discussion with the ward counselor about bringing a request to alter the location of on-street parking.
No, so it's more about a sidewalk. Wasn't there a new sidewalk going to be constructed along Woodbine on the side of the street opposite where the parking is now?
All the work done on Woodbine is completed, not by the applicant. That was not part of the proposal.
Oh,
But the DPW recently repaved Woodbine. And I can't remember, I think sidewalks were part of that. But, so that's been done.
okay.
But I think, and so I think there was a conversation about the side of parking relative to
Right.
where the sidewalk
Right.
was.
Okay, thanks. So the applicant doesn't need to address that. My fellow members addressed it.
May I bring up something on the sewer line and the water line connectivity? When we went for our feasibility studies on these to connect, both a sewer and water superintendent, neither one of them wanted to see any plans on the site as far as how we were running the water lines and sewer lines. Their only concern was how we were connecting to their structure and where we were terminating it on the property line. So I'm not exactly sure why the board needs to have them review our plans on that. Because they didn't ask for those. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
They just wanted to know how we were tying in, how we were doing the water and that was it. And that's why we got our fees from them and all that stuff on that. So I'm not sure showing them the site plan with it being on the private property, if they're gonna look at it that way or not. Is this something typically that the board usually does for sites like this? Or I'm only saying this because of the feedback I got from that department.
Yeah, I think the feedback was not from the department. It was from the, as you said, the person on site, the sewer
Yeah,
superintendent.
Brendan Shea and
But
Keith.
they're looking at the street and how it connects to the street. Now you're in a review to the planning board. And so the planning board looks at the site and the site details, and DPW will then look at making sure that there aren't conflicts when you put water and sewer lines on the property because it's so tight.
Yep, I get that.
So it may adjust where your units go. So whatever the water superintendent does and the sewer superintendent does in the street has nothing to do with your site development. That's absolutely true. Two different parts of
All right.
the department.
And just across the board, if DPW needs to review something as part of a plan, we don't approve something until that review has occurred because it can have these kinds of impacts that affect the
Understood.
site that we're reviewing.
I'm just confirming the conversation I had on the site. That's all.
Absolutely. Yep.
So,
That makes sense.
as far as if you guys want to talk about anything else, like the connectivity of the rail trail, that is not something the developers are actually looking to, is have it be public access for that. It took quite a while to actually get a response from DCR on this. Like, I'm not kidding you, maybe 6 weeks. I literally got a response later this week on it from them finally. So it took a little bit, but it's not, if the site was closer to the road and it could be a little bit of like 15 feet, that'd be a different story, but you're walking way into the site onto people's private property for this.
So what is proposed in the backyard there of the site, between the site and the rail trail? Is there a fence proposed there?
Right now, we have is a fence going across for privacy, and that is it.
So you're not gonna allow even for the residents there to
If
have some kind of access?
if they decide to do something on their own, then that is solely up to them. I do know the conversation I had with DCR is that if they find access trails like that, they tend to dismantle them. They don't like to see that. And I think that's really it on it. We have the tree protection report on there. And you guys have the sewer and water line and grading stuff. We're actually doing pervious asphalt, which alleviates our stormwater management. Because a lot of our stormwater management was going to be in the root zone of the trees. So we opted to do pervious asphalt instead. That solves it all. That's on the site plan as well.
Just want to say one thing. Trying to read the grading and erosion control plan, and I'm not sure if it was you who prepared the plans or an outside consultant,
Yep.
but there's some issue, it seems, with the plot that makes it pretty hard for me to read anyway. I'm guessing, knowing a little bit about AutoCAD, that it's some block related to the text. You see what I'm looking at here, George? Like there's just like these erroneous blocks
Oh,
around
yeah.
all the text
Yeah.
and arrows.
You mind if I go over there?
Yeah.
All the lines, the
So, like,
variety of grid lines.
The different texts and like call outs. There's
Yeah,
this
so
box all around everything.
These are the sewer line stuff that
Yeah.
come through.
I'm just saying for like a future plot, I mean, I deal with plans for a living, and this is really hard to look at and read and see what's going on just because of
Do
the,
you have this one here? That's more of the,
well, that's the site plan.
yeah. That one's more of the stormwater management plan.
Right. I'm just saying,
Mhm.
if you wanted to maybe replot this plan or have whoever prepared it replot it without the
That much
boxes,
stuff?
the rent,
Okay.
it's not even that much stuff. It's just, it seems like there's something going on with the way that it was plotted and like boxes around every field of text. It's just a computer issue.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
That makes it really hard to read.
Okay. It transferred over that way through the email, or no? I'm not
I don't know.
a computer person, but
So Just to follow up on the pervious pavement, that's gonna be designated in the new set of drawings?
It is already, it currently,
So we'll see that before the next meeting.
you have it now.
Yeah.
With the report. It's a 52-page report that
Yeah,
has it
so I-
spelled out. I know. It's in there. You'll.
Okay, so
you'll-
we'll look at it beforehand then. And do we have a history of a lot of pervious pavement in the city, Carolyn? Or since
Porous-
one,
There are some locations, it's very difficult because you actually, to make it porous, you have to maintain it.
Yep.
Maintain it regularly every year, like multiple times a year. And it also depends on the soils underneath. So you can't just put porous pavement on top of any yard in the city. So we'd have to look at that to see if that makes sense. But certainly the biggest thing would be, I mean, if it gets, again, a stormwater report wasn't required. So if it gets gummed up because the property owners don't do the 3 times a year maintenance or whatever it is, vacuuming
no.
the silt out, as long as it doesn't flow off-site. So it should be pitched into the property in case maintenance doesn't happen,
Mhm.
which is highly likely because you really need like a vacuum system to clean it. So that's why you don't see a lot of it because it's pretty intense in terms of maintenance. Yeah.
Are there other questions? I don't know if there's any comment. Do we want to entertain comment or ask people to return for the next and hopefully final hearing?
well, if people showed up tonight and they wanted to make a comment, I would say that that's okay, rather than coming back again in 2 weeks. They might have something appropriate for us to respond to that then the applicant could also hear.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, do we want to see the new plans? Because it seems like there are changes. It looks like you swapped a building location with the parking lot from last time.
We'd moved one building over, yeah.
Well, I think we've sort of, all right, let's step back for a moment because I think we're sort of splitting the difference here. I think we can decide to sort of hear everything new this time, work through any remaining questions that we may have, and then next time we're really looking for DPW sign off and any changes that might have arisen from that, and otherwise we're basically done, or we can save all of that and kind of look at everything, including DPW feedback next time. We've already addressed some kind of lingering questions, but so I think we just need to kind of decide if we want to do it tonight or in February. I don't think that I have a strong feeling. I lean a little bit toward what Rich said of just sort of looking at it all together as a package rather than piecemealing it. But then again, we're already partway into the conversation. So, and it does look like there's somebody who does want to give comment. So,
But so no, I agree with you. Given the new set of plans, I would really, if a building has been moved and whatnot, and given the whole concept of the porous pavement, I'd rather go and look at the site again also,
And the plans.
and the plans with the site, yeah.
mhm. Okay.
Although I'm happy to take public comment.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
In person with their hand.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is that the board wants more time to be able to review the information that was submitted by the applicant in advance of this meeting and then, bring questions and kind of look at everything as a total package at our next and final, hopefully final hearing. And because people from the public have come to the meeting and want to say something, we will hear from them in case that raises anything that hasn't yet come up. But otherwise, we'll basically wrap everything up in February. Yes? Yes. Okay, great. All right. So is there anybody here in council chambers who would like to give public comment about this project? Okay. In that case, we will turn to Zoom. And it looks like Bess, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Detmold, has their hand raised.
That mold is just right. And I
Perfect.
Woodbine. I just have a question about something that came up in
Bess, can you give us your address, please?
39 Woodbine.
Thank you.
I just have a question about something that I think Mr. Kohout mentioned in December about the amount of open space or green space.
Okay.
And it sounded to me, this is all new to me, so I apologize if I'm not using correct terminology or whatever. But it sounded like he asked for more information on that. And is that in the new material or will it be coming?
Sure, we can address that. Were there any other questions or issues that you wanted to raise, Bess?
No, that's it. I just that caught my ear in December, and I hadn't realized till I heard that there seems to be a requirement for the amount of open space. So,
Got it. Thank you.
thank you.
So yes, there are open space requirements, or a definitive lack thereof, throughout the city. I believe I'm looking at the most recent plans, have a proposed open space of 49%. I don't have handy what the requirement is in this. The requirement is 40 in this, district, and so they have exceeded that requirement.
So I think my comment related, and we've been through this before, that visually, when I looked at the plans, it didn't look like there was 50% open space to me. And the applicant said that they would go back and demonstrate their calculations. It seemed with all the buildings there and the patios and the pavement, just visually. So I didn't do the calculations myself on the plans.
Got it. So George, do you feel like,
Yeah, again, I haven't looked at the
You
new
okay.
plan, so I don't know if anything's been changed there, either to increase it or decrease the open space, but I think this has come up before, and we just want to make sure that we understand how the open space was calculated.
right? Yes, it can be very difficult to look at the plans and try to
Yeah.
gauge the space.
Looks like according to the calculation, it went up by 1%. There's now 49% open space. And last time there was 48.
Because we eliminated the
That
the
back
sidewalk
path.
going in.
Yeah.
It's easy. I mean, I don't take this as an insult, but it's easy math when you calculate it all out as it is on the plan. It
All the
shows you.
square footage of the buildings and,
Absolutely, yeah.
One thing that maybe visually is confusing is like that thick black dash line isn't the property line. Like the property line's actually like deep right
correct.
back.
Mm-hmm.
So
It looks,
when you count that sliver,
and the driveway being porous pavement proposed, does that count as open space?
that's a good question.
So all that driveway. All right, so I'll look at the new plans and I'll do those calculations myself. Yep.
that's fine. That's fine.
Bust out your trusty
Yeah,
calculator.
no, I understand, George, because we dealt, I remember, I got all upset at one point, because, there was a piece of property, they were counting, little slivers here and there to reach the number. I mean, it certainly wasn't a contiguous 40, percentage that actually mattered. No one was, throwing a party in the open space. But that's a bigger planning board issue versus just this project.
I do have a question on the stormwater management. So I guess I'm confused as to we're required to have it or not required to have it. We have to show how our water sheds off. Well, how do I do that without showing you a plan from an engineer how the water sheds off? So it's kind of it's a tricky situation to be in because we're under an acre of land, but I can't give you like a half demonstration of how you manage stormwater without that report that we got. Do you know what I mean? So I guess I'm a little confused as to we don't need it or we do need it because we spent the time on it. So do you know what I mean? I don't know how to. either we need it or we don't need it. I know as when we build for building code, we have to keep our water on our property. And that's displayed just by the normal site plan, how flat and level it is. But to get to the level of stormwater management, I guess I'm confused if we really need it or not. Does that make sense to the board?
Carolyn, do you?
It's a tricky question. I know.
Well, can I just say, it seems like you just need to demonstrate that the road or the driveway is tilted towards your property. As long as that, I mean, that's the key thing. And I mean, as long as someone is promising to do that.
Right, so you could have a level site and have your downspouts pointing towards your neighbors. And just because it's level doesn't mean it's going to stay on the site necessarily, because then you're going to start trenching and then it's going to just flow off site. So this scale of project doesn't require you to do the detail soils analysis and stormwater management report that you would need if you were 5,000 square feet or more of new construction. But you need to show other ways in which you're keeping that water on site. And but you went above and beyond. I haven't read it. I don't know, what Terry Reynolds' assumptions were, but we'll certainly review it. And in particular, it's important to understand if you're proposing porous pavement, that the soils can accommodate it and that you've got the management in place to for the long-term maintenance. Because if you do, you're going to have to grade it in a way that the infiltration works. And so that would need to be, evaluated to make sure that if it fails at some point in the future, that it's not then spilling into the road, for example. So we'll look at that.
Yeah, to be honest, the biggest concern for abutters, and we try to watch out for abutters, is traffic, drainage, and, lighting.
Mhm.
Really what that's going to do to my adjoining properties. So you've addressed most of those, so, which is great.
Okay, great.
All right. Does somebody care to make a motion?
And let me just tell you, so we've got 2 permits on for the 12th. I would recommend that this maybe 8:30 to be at the, at the end of the other 2 that have already been advertised. So.
So we're looking for a motion to continue to February 12th at 8:30.
I propose a motion to continue the review of 52 Woodbine Avenue to February 12th at 8:30 p.m.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Great. Thank you.
right,
We'll see
and
you on the 12th.
May I just ask this, the review continuation is for DPW to review the water and sewer connectivity, that type of stuff? Because there's no other questions that you guys have.
Well, I haven't reviewed any of the plans either. So
Okay.
Right. So I think the board will
That's what I mean.
And
take more time to look through everything. And if
Yeah.
we have
And
additional
if any
questions, we'll
questions
raise
come up on
those.
that, but nothing else out of the blue that you guys have is what I want to address right now.
Not today.
I mean, I would tell you, if I was reviewing the plans instead of DPW, I'd want to see the dimension between the water and sewer noted on the plans. I scaled it. It looks like it's mostly 10 or 11
Yep,
feet, which
10
is
feet.
great.
Yep.
But at the very front of the existing house where it connects to the sewer manhole, it's closer than 10 feet. It's like 9.5.
Okay.
They're not quite parallel with each other, so
Yep.
you might just want to double check that.
All right.
But I don't know if DPW is going to say that or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So
And see if they can replot those plans without those boxes.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I think that brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is a discussion of zoning changes. So we got some proposed language from Carolyn around a potential change, proposed change to side setbacks in URB, and a change to allow two-family without site plan review. I don't know where you want to start, Carolyn. Maybe the two-family, that seemed more pretty straightforward
Okay.
in terms of its
Sure.
proposed change.
Are we all looking at these on our screen?
Do you want me to share?
That might be helpful if
Okay.
in case there's anybody in the audience that.
Yes, that's the most important.
Your microphone is off. Planning board.
So is the goal to exempt any two-family, no matter the size of it? Is that what we're trying to do?
Yeah, so forever, probably since that, in the zoning ordinance, there was a threshold that triggered site for any kind of construction. Except for single family. So you could build a 12,000 square foot single family home, no site plan. And then there was the 2,000 square foot threshold, 5,000 square. Always, we can debate that as well, but that's not on the table for discussion tonight. That could be another day. So when the two-family by right was adopted, there was still a threshold at 2,000 square feet. So if you build two 1,000 square foot units, or 1,050, it's going to automatically put you into site plan, even though those are relatively small units. And so it's a barrier for people, and particularly individual property owners who just want to add another unit, and or if they're building two-family for themselves, or so you've seen several of these two-family site plan permits, and I think it's one of those questions that we've looked internally in the planning office for several years, but I think now with some examples that the planning board has reviewed, I thought it made sense to come back to and see if it would be appropriate to eliminate that, to sort of, again, eliminate that barrier to, and reduce costs and time and all of that for people who are building a second unit. So that's what this would do. There's still a special permit requirement for, in some districts, if you're building two units that are over 1,800 square feet. That was one of the things that came in when we did the two-family by right. A couple of counselors were concerned about large two families, so we don't have any special permit criteria about 1,800 square feet. It was just sort of chosen. I mean, that's when if you all, some of you may remember, we did an analysis of sort of the average unit size in Northampton, and it's around 1,800 square feet. So I think that's where that 1,800 came from originally. It's like, okay, if you're building more than that, that's just at the average for two families. So that special permit is not, I didn't include that language in here to eliminate that special permit criteria, because I think that's a bigger conversation. I think the Ward 7 counselor was certainly a proponent of that, and so I haven't had a conversation with her about that. So this is really just anything outside of that special permit threshold would be covered in this proposed language change.
And then I see that half-scale units are talked about in that, I guess, 2,000, under 5,000 really.
Well, so it would exempt up to 4 half-scale units because it's like 2 for 1. So that
Right.
ultimately is the 2-family
But
piece.
then we don't talk about half-scale units in the 5,000 and the over 5,000 section.
True. Yeah. No.
Is there a reason, or?
Do you have the zoning up?
I think so.
Let me look at that.
Could,
Thought we did.
would you define half-scale units for me again?
So they're defined as units of 800 square feet or less. And so that's how, so it's sort of half of what the average, a little bit less than half of the average single unit is in Northampton. And it was an incentive to try to create smaller units to be more accessible for people if, you know, they can get into the market, if it's not just, you know, 2,000 square foot home, but 800 square
And-
feet. So
And they can be attached
yes.
or detached?
Yes. So let's see, 11. And they're only allowed in the B and C districts,
Uh-huh.
not anywhere else.
Okay.
In the city.
That's what it
I
was.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
number
So,
1 is just B and C, and then number 2 is everything else.
yes. Yes.
But then number 3, so projects requiring site plan approval as intermediate projects, we say we exclude the single or 2-family attached and detached, but then we don't mention half scale. So I was just
Oh.
curious if that's by design or not by design.
No, it's oversight, not designed.
But yeah, so I guess,
So we should make that mirror that. That's a good catch. Yep.
yeah.
Can you repeat that?
So in paragraph 1, we talk about exempting single and 2-family homes and up to 4 half-scale units, which is only in B and C. In UR, B and C. In paragraph 2, these other zones don't allow half-scale units, so it wouldn't be appropriate to mention it there. In paragraph 3, now this kind of blankets all zones, projects requiring site plan approval as intermediate projects. So it blankets both UR, B, and C plus the other zones. So I'm not quite sure how to handle. I mean, maybe this is appropriate the way it's handled. I just wanted to flag it. That's all.
Yeah. I'm going to add up to 4 half scale.
In UR, B, and C, or does that
Just
get too?
scale, just because it's only, then you go back and you say, oh, where's half scale allowed in B and C?
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I guess for full clarity, I could say applicable only in B.
That might help, yeah.
So, real quickly, going back to
Sam, can you turn your mic on? Thanks.
the half-scale units, where I could see this being a problem, is I can imagine a world where someone builds four units by right, and but the parking situation like doesn't actually, they don't, it's not like, are we causing more parking problems because they can suddenly have, they don't need to have would they need to have the same number of parking spaces that you would need to have for a 3,600 square foot?
Yeah, so
Pretty-
parking, so first, just to separate, this was just whether or not you trigger site plan review.
I understand that.
So it won't address all the other criteria that you're supposed to, that you have to meet.
Yeah.
Parking is a standalone and you are required 1 parking space per unit. So that would that would continue and be required no matter whether you came to site plan review or you didn't. So this would not affect that.
But a half-scale unit still requires 1 parking space.
Yes.
So 4 half-scale units require 4 parking spaces.
Yeah.
So there'd actually be more parking
More parking.
required with the same amount of house.
Right. So two units would require 2 spaces. 4 half-scale units would require 4 spaces.
And all of that is vetted by the building inspector.
Yes, I mean, the reality is that we do joint meetings, so it's between the planning office and the building department that reviews these.
I have a question, thanks to something George said about item 1 on this list, URB and URC. It says the requirement applies to all uses except for single and 2-family homes, attached or detached, and up to 4 half-scale units. Do we want that kind of attached or detached to apply to all of those options, single-family homes, 2-family homes, and half-scale units? Do you see what I'm saying? Do we want to just move that to the end of the attached or detached to the end of that sentence so that it's clear that the half-scale units can also be attached or detached?
Oh. Yes. That probably makes sense, because that's the intention.
Okay. And so similarly, if we're making changes, I'm looking at the version I downloaded, not what you're doing on screen, but similarly, per Chris's comments, if we're making changes to 3 to include the half-scale units, we would want the same specification to apply there as well.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And then I have the same comment about paragraph 4, because that's now just talking about projects over 5,000 square feet. But again, it would exclude single. Well, here the language is different because this says single or 2-family, where in the other ones it's been saying single and 2-family.
No, I think it actually only says single and 2-family in the first one. The other 2, 3, and 4 all say single or.
So I'll just make it
Right.
consistent.
But which one is right? I think it should be or, shouldn't it? Single or 2-family
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
half scale?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just changed the and to the or.
Okay.
But I should probably.
So the and right before up to 4 half-scale units should also be in one.
Right. It should all be ors.
Oh.
Because otherwise you could build a single
Family and a 2-family.
and a 2-family and 4 half-scale units on the same lot. That's 7.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, I'm gonna add the.
And this is entirely the planning board is floating this? Or do we have any city councilors who want to?
So I haven't had the conversation, so I put you and not knowing, like, yeah, surprise. So that is TBD. But I'd certainly, before this moves anywhere, I would let you guys know what's sort of what others would be. Yeah, so the process would be once this is ready to go, I would submit it with whoever and how many sponsors want to be on it to city council. And then it gets referred out to public hearing to the planning board and legislative matters, and then it comes back to full city council for a vote.
So we would have time to talk through all of this again, potentially in a joint hearing as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Have they been assigned to committees yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I can't remember who's on what, but
I'm
it's on the
I'm
website.
sure I could check on the website.
Yes.
Yeah, haven't.
Yes.
It's not my number one priority.
Okay. Okay, any other questions about that or comments? Does it make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Mhm. I like the idea of more efficiency, fewer hearings about things that I don't think we really need to be having hearings about, because I think staff can handle them and hopefully allow more of these projects to move forward.
Okay, so the other item that has sort of been kicking around for a while as well is the discussion about potentially changing the side yard setbacks in the urban residential B. So in the urban residential districts,
Screen share again. You have it back in.
it can be. Oh, that red does not show up well. Yikes. Okay. I think I'll have to change this to some other color. Let's keep it simple black. Okay. So in going back again to the 70s, there were different setbacks in different districts. And fast forward, your urban residential C is the district immediately around downtown, and moving up Elm Street a little bit, out Bridge Street, and east and west of Pleasant Street. And that has been a 10-foot side setback for a long time. It reflects the character of that zone. And in most of the other districts, it has been a 15-foot side setback, except in the WSP and SR districts, they were bigger setbacks until about 2013, and we sort of reduced down to 15 feet in most districts now. At the same time in 2013, in urban residential B and A, we reduced the minimum lot frontage to 50 feet from 75 feet. And actually there was 100 feet in URA before that. But so all the lot widths for A, B, and C went down to 50 feet. And that then made it a little bit more complicated and difficult if you still had 15-foot side setbacks with a 50-foot width lot, because then your building envelope would be 20 feet wide. So people have done it. It does alter the flexibility of where you can put things on the property, and you know, if you have two structures on a property, they really have to be attached or very close together in order to keep the outer setbacks, 15 feet. And the other issue that we have heard about is that materials cost and sort of widths and lengths of materials come in certain sizes, and if they're not, if you have to customize that to fit into those side setbacks, that adds to the construction costs. So this idea about potentially reducing side setbacks to allow a little bit more wiggle room, we've talked about internally for a number of years, but didn't really know if there was, wanted to make sure there was enough experience out there in the building world to understand whether that would be helpful, whether it would be supported, and so forth. So what I've drawn up here is, we've thought about matching URB to URC at a 10-foot side setback, but I think also there might be some concern from residents in the community that they don't want the same, zoning requirements as URC. And so splitting the difference at 12 is sort of what I've pitched. I do think it would be appropriate to reduce the 15-foot side setback so that you have more than just a 20-foot width to work with in terms of building. But again, I just wanted to put it out there for conversation. Just start that discussion.
This would be the biggest impact on residents. This would be a huge impact. And I don't know if residents would realize how much of an impact this would be, but this would completely change the character of all of the neighborhoods. To go from having 30 feet between houses to having, 24 feet between houses, it would just completely look different. And it's like, yeah, that you can have a 50-foot frontage and you can subdivide lots to get a 50-foot frontage, but that doesn't mean you have to do that. You're going to squeeze yourself into that small building envelope. The side setbacks, that's like the biggest buffer you have from your neighbor. So this is like, to me, this is a giant change that I don't think residents are going to realize. I don't think anyone's going to come out to talk for or against this, but they're not going to realize what a big change this is.
Can I ask how, it seems like there's, my experience is purely where I've, done construction work, and it just seems like there's so many places that might have, that 30 feet, but then within them,
Porches.
There's so many places that there's like a non-conforming structure within that. So it just like, it's not 30, 30, 30, 30, 30 at all. It's like 30 and then 0. and then, it just doesn't seem consistent. I get what you're saying, that,
Yeah, I think what you're saying is valid and a good point to raise, because what the district we're talking about is in a primarily built out district that's historically, it contains some of the oldest buildings in the city. So there are a number of nonconformities already. So that is something to consider for sure.
Did I hear you say earlier that in URB and URC, there already is a 10-foot wide setback?
Just URC.
Just URC.
URC is 10
So-
feet, and in many cases, there are 0 or 2 or 3 feet in URC.
I live
Yeah.
at 0, yeah.
Yeah.
So Chris, I understand what you're saying, but again, if we're trying to expand on our housing inventory, doesn't that kind of help this? If people can subdivide a lot and have just 50-foot frontage, gives them a little bit more flexibility to build there. But I also wonder about the 12 versus the 10. Doesn't that then shoot down that argument about building materials, which I don't buy anyhow? And I'll ask Sam, who has more experience with building materials, but
it just seems like the building materials, I'm not building, these homes, everything is, standard lengths, 8s, 10s, and so I can't imagine that changing things that much. But to me, what I would like to see with whatever percentage we land on, and I think this will make more people in our city happy, is whatever change we're making, that part of that is also connected to contiguous open space. So yeah, let's let people make a house maybe a little wider, because it makes it easier to build that house. But I think we need to step away from this, like, a sliver that, we get to 49% because we add up slivers of pieces of land that are, because I just feel like the neighbor, like that 40% number, the idea, at least when I hear that 40% number, I think of it in my head, whoever came up with that was creating an idea that there's a house and then 40% that you could feel is open. And we have stepped away from the 40% that you could feel is open to like an accountant figuring out what 40% is. And I just think that this would be a good chance to say, all right, well, let's allow 10% or whatever that the setback is, but then in the trade-off to that is that your land has to, like, the building that you build, you have to have a real backyard, or a real front yard or a real side yard. Like, that's your choice. But I think that we want to make things easier, but we want to make future Northampton look attractive. And part of that is contiguous space.
I don't think you can get away from the accounting of it.
Oh, well,
So if you want larger backyards, you just have to up the open space requirement by 10-20%. And then they're going to do all the accounting.
well, I guess what I'm saying is that I mean, and that picture is a good example. I mean, that's what we are imagining when we think of the and again, I'm not gonna go calculate what that percentage is, but that's what we are imagining in our heads when we think of open space, or at least that's what I think of.
But they would still be counting this little sliver around between the house and the driveway.
Yeah, 100%. And you're not going to get away from that. My point is that there needs to be some portion of that, some portion of the 40% that is contiguous. So in other words, you'd say there's a 40% open space rule, 20% of it has to be in one spot connected. I'm making all those numbers are made up, but I think that if you allow the setback, but then if you allow the houses to be closer together, but then you demand, and that's fine, that in the process, like, like my mom's house is very close to the other house, and I feel like it would be, but the saving grace is they all have backyards.
Well, I think
You
it's like squeezing a tube of toothpaste, right? The wider it gets, then all that open space has to be in the front or the back. So
Yeah,
maybe it
yeah.
accomplishes what you want.
Maybe,
Maybe
yeah.
that's a good argument to have very few side setbacks.
Yeah,
Now all your open space isn't on the side.
Yeah.
It's
I just think that we're
squeezed to the front and back.
I mean, I guess we haven't had a big development in a while, but the anger that people have had at so many of these infill things seems to come down to, and maybe this is just again, I need to speak for myself. My disappointment has always been that it's like gaming the system versus enhancing the system. And I mean, I love the idea. I mean, personally, I love the idea of having just uniformly 10 feet and just be done. And those, like, everything is, I mean, I like the idea of everything being the same. Make it the same, but then create some restrictions that say, in part of making the same, you have to have enough space so that there's a place for a picnic table and like a group of 8 people to get together and have a barbecue. Because that's what Northampton is. I mean, that's what, at least that's my feeling of what Northampton is.
Good, I like that.
So okay.
Anyway,
Percentage of open
Well,
space
I-
you're suggesting.
Well,
No, I think,
I wonder if that's a separate item about kind of revising the tables or something around open space rather than tying it into this on the side setbacks.
I think that Chris's point about toothpaste is true. That, I mean, except it contradicts your earlier argument to preserve these.
Yeah, I
the-
I think
and-
people aren't gonna like it. I think when certain builders come in and build 35-foot high duplexes on the lot, people are gonna be more upset when it's only 12 feet from their property line versus 15 feet from their
Maybe,
property line.
but bear in mind that we're talking about, as someone already said, a mostly built out district, and we're talking about infill. We're not talking about mass. It may manifest differently if we get a new large development, but as far as, this is going to be in tiny increments mostly. I like the idea. I find Sam's argument compelling, and there wasn't your argument, but I think the way you put it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will accomplish, I mean.
And I think
open
your
space
point
has-
about yards is a good one.
Well, I mean, there's something about, and maybe the fact that reduction of parking could help in this regard, but there is potentially something to be said about the paved area, because that doesn't count as open space, but it's not structure. So people might be inclined to create more parking pad in their backyard to a garage or something like that. Whereas if there was a criteria that you have to have some contiguous, I don't know how you'd word this,
Impervious
then it
surface.
might
An impervious
push, it might counter some people's inclination to just fill up the rest of their, space that they can with pavement,
Yeah.
which is sort of what you're suggesting is probably not the right use of
I don't, yeah, I hope that's.
No, that's not what you said. I'm saying
No.
that, if there are instances where there is enough capacity in an open space calculation that someone might choose, well, I don't really need a big backyard. But I'd love to have this pavement between my house and my garage. I'll fill it up. And I'm still meeting my, 40% because I've got it all around. And so,
That's
that
totally
would, what's that?
That's fine, if that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because like the city's just looking from a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
We just don't want
Right, but that.
whatever in this zone. So as long as every individual lot complies with that, we know that we'll have an overall impervious area that's meeting the goals of the city and
Right,
zones
that's not
that it's-
quite, I mean, what Sam is suggesting is not
No,
that.
not
so.
this.
right. But I would say it'd be simpler to just increase the open space requirements in every zone by 10%, and then you'll get more contiguous area that way.
Could you?
I mean, it's
could
all,
you-
it's just
could
a
you
number.
could you shrink this? Can you shrink the setback? Or shrink the, what, this is a question, could you make it 10 feet, but increase the green space requirement?
Sure, you could pitch.
Well, I'm asking in reality. I'm asking
Yeah.
you as
Whatever.
as a planning board member, not, yes, I understand you could do anything you wanted. I get it.
Uh-huh.
But I mean,
Well, I think who's ever proposing this is actually looking for an ability to have a larger footprint, right? For the house and be able to situate the house in a way. So,
Could be larger footprint or more flexibility in sort of where things are located.
Mm-hmm.
Right, a wider house, so it doesn't have to be as deep and skinny. It isn't deep and skinny, it can be
Yep.
wider
Right,
and more
right.
square.
right.
I mean, aren't the open space requirements generally related to the permeability of
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's not really connected to how the property looks. I mean, it is in a way, but it's more about like, where's all the water gonna go?
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, but I guess my question with that is that, like, if that's correct, if that's our concern, like, the idea that somehow, I always go back to that property, I think it was like Holly that had like 4 units on this tiny little foot. Williams, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That like, it was just absurd. It was absurd that, and the idea that that tiny little sliver was accepting all the water, I just, as a builder, I just don't believe it. You know, first of all, like I mean, if you really want to get technical, like the concrete itself, like the pavement is this big, but when they do the initial layer of like if it's 6 layers, like there's 4 inches plus on either side that are under the ground that aren't accepting water. So it's like the idea that somehow that sliver is accepting the 40% is just not true, because again, 40%, if the sliver, because I just took away 8 inches of absorbable property, because suddenly like half of it, like, you know, when you around the house, there's however many feet of gravel around your the footing, and then there's that much, you know, not permeable stuff around every driveway. I mean, it's just not gonna actually absorb the water that people are talking about. In real, I'm just saying, like how people actually build homes.
So raise the open space.
Yeah, maybe we need to increase it.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the concern, I mean, to me, when I hear open space, I think, what I believe most other people think when they think open space is not what you're correct in saying, that the goal is water absorption. Most people think open space. Oh, families playing. That's what they think of open space.
It's really just non-impervious area.
Okay, I get technically what it is. I'm just saying, when if people are selling the idea of open space
Yeah.
to anyone in city council, or if there was anyone here, no one thinks open space. Definition, non-impervious, because we're not robots. We're actually human beings that live here.
Maybe.
I think both points are important.
Of course. I'm just
and-
saying
and-
that, you know, like,
And yeah, I mean, I don't want to diminish either. Open space as recreational space and open space as permeable surface. We want to have our cake and eat it too here. I think we can actually.
I mean, to that point, I wonder if it's worth changing. Is there a reason why is open space sort of the accepted nomenclature, or might we consider changing it or giving an additional definition that calls it permeable surface? I mean, I take Sam's point that like it does sort of give, you know, I think about, we got some public comment tonight by somebody asking about it. It's something we've talked about and people wonder about it. And it does sort of suggest something that it's not necessarily intended to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, any term you might pick might be confusing to some, or have a different perspective from one party to the next. I think we don't want to define it exclusively as pervious versus impervious, because then you get to the point where you've got pervious pavement, and that's not the whole point of open. I mean, there is area for vegetation, there's you know, trees, landscaping, but also that is part of water infiltration. But you know, when you have a porous pavement, it's still compacted soil, it's still hot. You know, you don't want that to be confused with the other part of the. So we certainly could look at terminology, but we want to be careful about that.
We're talking just about the URB district.
Yes.
But did you also state that across the city, we've reduced the frontage lot to 50 feet? across the city.
Not across the city, but in URA, B, and C.
Okay. But we're not proposing any change to the side setbacks in UR A and C, only in URB.
C is already 10.
Oh, C is 10, okay.
And no, I think because it's one of those incremental things, and URA is a little bit, I mean, I think we need to address the idea of URA anyway, and sort of what might be appropriate there. You know, we've, it goes back to sort of what people are accustomed to sort of seeing in their neighborhood, which is URA. There tends to be a little bit more separation and space on those properties, but they are very walkable to Florence Center, and even there are pockets of URA off of Elm Street surrounded by C and B. So it is something I think we need to look at. I think it would make more sense to look at a rezoning instead of
Yep.
tweaking
Yep.
the setbacks in A. And we started that conversation, gosh, 4 years ago now to rezone A, and then,
It's a little pushback there.
yeah.
Which one's A?
So there's a little bit of A around Child's Park, and then up like Ridgewood Terrace neighborhood by Jackson Street School, and then in Florence, north of Route 9, between Main Street and Bridge Road. That pretty much is all URA. There's some URA in Leeds as well. So, I mean, really, it probably makes more sense to look at the map, but generally that's, yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to find
Is
the
it?
lists and I
Oh, I
can't.
thought it was. It's weird.
Yeah, I was curious who
Yeah.
we're going to be working with.
I mean, what are these? So like these houses here, this is like Crescent Street, and yeah, this got a lot of pushback because of those big yards. They didn't want it to be changed at all.
Okay.
So the question before us is 10 feet or 12 feet or no change?
Yeah,
Yes.
all of that.
All of that.
And earlier you said sort of whoever's proposing this, and I think it behooves us to remember that I think we're the ones proposing this. So it would be good if we felt good about, I mean,
Yes.
Carolyn's going to go and, hopefully drum up some additional sponsors, but the idea is that
Yeah.
this is sort of coming from
Well, I
us.
don't know if this was,
I only want 10 feet from me, but 15 feet from Renee.
Yeah.
That's generally how zoning.
I know, yeah.
Rule of thumb.
10 feet for me, 30 feet for everybody.
Yeah, there's the ST district.
There
and
will be
the
pushback.
BW.
I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I think as Chris was saying, I do agree, like maybe people won't know about it until it happens in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I think if this does go forward, it'll be helpful to at least talk to some of the counselors who this, neighborhoods that this affect.
Yeah.
And they can
Too
get the
about-
word out.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wonder too about some, and I don't know how you do this, although I suppose we have some of this in like the form-based code, but some illustrative renderings.
Yeah.
Because, and I also appreciate what Chris said, because I think when you're thinking, you're like, oh, 3 feet, like that doesn't make a big difference, but actually it's not 3, it's 6, and it's not 3 feet down here, it's 3 feet, 2 or 3 stories high, and that starts to feel very different, and that it's really hard. You have to sort of think all those steps forward and then try to imagine that in, places where neighborhoods you're familiar with or your own yard or whatever. And I think that's the piece that makes it really hard for people to engage in the abstract. So if this is going to move forward, I think, yes, getting counselors to engage their constituents, but also having some visuals and some other ways to kind of conceive of it so that,
I really benefit from renderings.
yeah. Because we've seen that with so many of these bigger developments that have come in, of people just feeling like these things are just looming over their existing properties, and that's a real point of contention and understandable concern for people.
Be really interesting to see some other towns where 10 feet has been in place for a while, and we could find some examples of a new building being built close to an old building that uses 10 feet, 20 feet apart or something. I don't know. There's got to be other towns that did this a long time ago.
Well,
Oh,
could we see images? I mean, I'm sure this already exists in Northampton.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's part of what we're talking about. Like, it already exists in URA or
that's
URC,
true.
and in
Right,
URB, I'm
right, right,
sure
right.
there's non-conforming. There is definitely not 30 feet between my house and my next door neighbor's house. Like, no way. I haven't gone out with a tape measure, but
Well,
I
you better get out there, Jim.
yeah.
Be surprised.
Yeah, I actually think that that's like an interesting part of this is like, is having, instead of saying something like 30 feet, it's actually putting something that people recognize as a size. Like the best example of this would be completely unrelated to zoning, but when I went to buy some stones for a project from Goshen Stone, like they literally were like, so a microwave size stone is like $80, and a like stove size stone is $150. But I was like, oh, I know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I know what a stove looks like, and I know what
Yeah.
and so it's like finding that.
Well, your point about your point about picnic table was another good illustration. Things that are familiar.
Mhm. I'm so curious now. I totally want to pull out a tape measure and see.
So I don't know where the 30 feet came in, but between neighbors, it's
Well-
15 feet now, right?
Well, because it's 15 on each property.
If you're on each side of the line.
I see.
If you're complying.
If you're complying, which is why then if we're reducing it
And
by
that
3
does-
feet, then it's 6
It
total.
doesn't include the a porch.
Accessory structure.
Accessory structures, yeah.
Porches can be in the setback.
Ooh, look
Yeah.
at this.
Garages.
That's part of the thing, so.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, if you have a wraparound porch around your house, that house that looks like 2,000, or that is 2,000 square feet, suddenly looks like 3,000.
Mm. That's very pretty, Carolyn.
Well, unfortunately, the whole map, I'm just doing this on Google Earth. I'll have to just zip around because the map that we have on the city website, we're in the process of changing, so it's easier to read. And so right now, the colors, it wouldn't make, I can't show it to you because you wouldn't.
What were you gonna show? Where where
Yeah, where the difference is.
B is?
Yeah. No, there's way more B than A. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And
Well, for next, you don't have to
Yeah.
listen to this now, but those would be really great to see some of that for next meeting.
Because isn't B's like our whole neighborhood and like all of Ward 3 basically
right,
is
South
B.
Street, all of South Street,
Yeah.
both sides is B. So out Elm Street on both sides, except for those pockets of A that are stuck at the end of Ward Avenue and then on Hill.
Crescent Street,
Yeah,
yes.
there's a little pocket in there on, of A,
Big back.
but
And when
otherwise.
you look at
B,
them, are they obviously different?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Like Woodlawn and Massasoit.
Yeah.
Is Woodlawn?
Woodlawn is A, but at the back lot lines, it goes to B. And so, yeah, Woodlawn, yeah.
I mean, it feels different because the park's on one side, but like looking at the lots.
Right. I mean, there are some bigger lots, but also we want to think about the location. I mean, there's no difference in the location from one side of, from Woodlawn to Massasoit, right?
So I just looked this up because I have a house on Hull and these properties are very close to each other. So the minimum setback in Hull, Massachusetts, so if you wanted to look at like a Google Earth of those cities is 6 feet. And they are very close together.
It feels
It definitely feels different.
Yeah.
Like I'm always like, hey, my neighbor's watching watching
Right.
something on their TV.
Right.
Now the consistency of it makes it okay, and they also they have a 25-foot setback in the front.
Wow.
So they have these very large.
Deep lots.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, the nice part about, looking at other towns and the benefits of that is that like it literally creates a porch atmosphere. Like there are these great events there where people have like these musical things on people's like front porches, and I mean, partially because it's a beach town, but everyone does hang out on a porch, like especially in the front, because you have this really nice space there. But the side setbacks are very close together.
Yeah. No, there are definitely lots of examples of infill, new, homes between two historic homes. And again, a lot of it goes back to design. It's not, but it does mean change. But we're also constantly changing anyway. I mean, there's nothing,
Does it make sense tonight to land on 12 feet just so that we can move this down the road to the counselors? Or do we want to stick to the guns and say, no, we don't want to monkey around with this 15 feet?
Oh, I think it's still on the table. I just want to.
well, you're gonna have a little more conversations. Like this isn't. I definitely think it. This is a change that we'd want to sort of take around and get counselors involved with their constituents.
I'm going to go around town with a tape measure.
Yeah. So it's just, I wanted to start the conversation because I know it's going to be.
Yeah, you walk onto the lawn. Like, I do like universal rules. I mean, I think that if everyone is in the same boat, then
We say 10 feet.
then you're like, well, then everyone gets to complain about the same thing. Versus like, I mean, I've been on the planning board forever, and I'm like, you are. What letters are we throwing out together today about where our zoning is? It's like, I mean, the I think one of the points is like it's just really nice to be moving to a place where like just consistency. Like, what are the rules?
Aren't we consistent at 15 feet right now, except in URA?
No, URC is 10 feet, and then most.
Oh, URC.
Yeah.
URA is 15.
Yeah.
So everything's 15 except URC.
Yeah.
Well,
so we're moving away from consistent.
Yeah. Well, unless we just would really.
Unless we just get rid of
URA.
URA. Yeah, right.
Get rid of setbacks.
Yeah.
Carolyn, can you remind me what the 0 foot on the one side for reduced lot line is? Is that when the two lots are in the same ownership, you can
Yeah, I mean,
them
when
together?
they don't have to maintain same ownership, but you have to be in control of the
Start
properties when you create that.
with the same
scenario.
ownership?
Yeah.
And then the setback on the other side is just the normal 15 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you are subdivided, so if you had a lot that was 100 feet of frontage and you wanted to split it into 250 lots of 50 frontage, you could just put them as close as you want.
You could, well, it has to be either touching.
Well, it has to be
or
0.
10 feet. So there's 20 feet there's a minimum of 20 feet between the two. So that's an example where you could have a 10-foot side setback. But it's only in that scenario where
Right.
you're
You're like
control of both
subdividing it
units
and
of-
building it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Property.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And
thanks.
then you're really not consistent because one side is 10 and the other's 15.
Is there anybody in the audience that we be mindful of? Is this open to public comment? Is any discussions or?
Well, it's all up to you. It's not a public hearing. It's your discussion. I don't see any hands up.
There is someone in the audience, but that person also submitted written public comment that we all received by email
Yeah.
related to this. So
Yeah, I'm not sure that 26 feet of, because if you have 12 and 12 out of 50, if you have 12 and 12, that equals 24 minus 50 leaves you a 26-foot wide building envelope. So I'm not sure that's a nominal lumber dimension. Anyway, so I'm not quite sure what the argument would be, but
Yeah, but
Ultimately, I think it's more about flexibility and building width and, house width, like thinking about the width of your house and
Although I will say that if there's a measurable amount more waste with a certain measurement, I want to know about it.
yeah.
But one person's written comment doesn't convince me, frankly.
So, how about for next time when we have a moment, what can bring maps of A, B, and C? We can look at examples of tens and infills and,
And everybody with his measurements.
yes. Yes.
they're cheaper than the bail you need for the trespassing charges.
well, we definitely don't meet the side setback on this side of our house that we're thinking about, but that's also because our lot was subdivided and they sold one half of it for $1 after they gave it to their kids, like in like the 40s. So I think they were like happy to be not watching the TV at the time, but like, the grandkids running across the very
Yeah.
narrow gap between the two. So I am going to go and measure, but I'm sure it's not, we're non-conforming for sure.
It's a good reminder that there are people who want to be uptight next to whatever.
We know our neighbors a lot better than we would otherwise, and they're very lovely people. Shout out to Pete and Lauren. So, sure they're not. Also encourage people to research the history of your house. It's really fun.
Research what?
The history of your house.
Oh,
But that sounds great, Carolyn.
yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for what you're doing. It's great.
Okay.
I don't have an A&R or minutes.
isn't there a third document?
I said central business. We already sort of went over the central business district, so I had it on there to sort of revisit, but I didn't send it out again.
And that's another setback issue, right? That's kind of like the importance of setbacks and
Heights and step backs and
yeah.
Yeah.
I think setbacks are, especially side setbacks, are just like critical piece of the zoning.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have no minutes, no A&Rs. Is there a motion to adjourn at
I move to adjourn.
8:38? Second.
A second.
All those in favor? Great. Thanks, everybody.
Great.